I was standing in my mother's driveway when she told me I was no longer her daughter. Behind her sat 3 black SUVs, a silver Rolls-Royce, and the limestone mansion my father had spent 30 years building outside Greenwich, Connecticut. In front of her stood me, holding one suitcase and the leather bag she had packed for me like I was a guest who had overstayed her welcome. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 34 years old, and until that morning, I believed loyalty could protect a family. I was wrong. My mother, Vivian, pointed toward the gate. Her silver hair moved in the cold spring wind, but her voice never shook. "Leave before you embarrass us any further," she said. My older brother, Grant, stood on the front steps holding a stack of papers. He had invited half the family to watch. Aunts, cousins, business partners, even 2 members of the household staff were staring from the entrance. Grant raised the papers and shouted, "You stole from Dad's company. We have proof." I could barely breathe. For 11 years, I had managed the finances of Bennett Development, our family's real estate company. I had worked weekends, canceled vacations, and cared for my father during the final months of his life. I had never stolen a cent. "Let me see the proof," I said. Grant smiled. "Your signature is on every transfer." He tossed copies onto the gravel. Bank records scattered around my boots. They showed 7 transfers totaling $2 million from a company reserve account into an account bearing my name. The signatures looked exactly like mine. My mother stepped closer. "Your father trusted you." "I didn't do this." "Then why did we find the account?" I looked at Grant. He was trying to appear angry, but I saw something else in his face. Satisfaction. That was when I understood. This was not an accusation. It was a performance. "You planned this," I said. Grant laughed. "You always think you're the smartest person in the room." My mother grabbed my arm. "Get off my property." The family attorney, Martin Vale, stepped between us. He quietly told me that if I left immediately and surrendered my shares in the company, the family would not contact the police. That offer told me everything. If they truly believed I had stolen $2 million, they would have called the police before breakfast. They did not want an investigation. They wanted my shares. Still, I signed nothing. I picked up one of the bank records, placed it inside my bag, and walked toward the gate while my mother shouted behind me, "You will leave with nothing?" I turned once and looked at the house where I had grown up. "No," I said. "I'm leaving with the truth." At that moment, I did not know what the truth was, but I was determined to find it. I checked into a small hotel in Stamford. My family froze my company card before I reached the room. By evening, Grant had sent an email to every employee saying I had resigned because of serious financial misconduct. Then my fiancé, Daniel, called. I expected comfort. Instead, he spoke like a stranger. "Grant showed me the records," he said. "They're fake. Claire, your signature is there. Do you believe I stole that money?" There was a long silence. "I think we need some space." He ended the call before I could answer. That hurt almost as much as my mother's words. Daniel and I had been together for 4 years. Our wedding was 7 weeks away, but one accusation had been enough to make him disappear. I sat on the hotel floor and cried until midnight. Then my phone rang again. It was Alina Ruiz, my father's former executive assistant. She had retired 2 months before he died. "Claire," she whispered, "your father warned me this might happen." I stopped crying. Elena asked me to meet her at a diner near the interstate. When I arrived, she was sitting in a back booth with a sealed envelope. She slid it across the table. "Your father gave this to me 3 days before he died," she said. "He told me to give it to you only if Vivian and Grant tried to remove you from the company." Inside was a handwritten note. Claire, if you are reading this, Grant has made his move. Do not trust the will in Martin Vale's office. It is not the final will. Find the blue ledger. The key is where we watch the stars. Love, Dad. I read it 3 times. My father's official will had divided his estate equally between my mother, Grant, and me. But Grant controlled the voting shares because he was the oldest child. I had questioned that decision, yet Martin had insisted it was exactly what Dad wanted. Now I knew there was another will. The line about the stars led me to our old lake cabin in Vermont. When Grant and I were children, Dad had built a small platform on the roof so we could watch meteor showers. The family had not used the cabin in years. Alina drove with me. We arrived shortly after dark and found the cabin's front door broken. Someone had arrived before us. Drawers had been pulled out. Mattresses had been cut open. Papers covered the floor. My heart sank. Then I remembered my father never hid important things in obvious places. I climbed the narrow ladder to the roof platform. Beneath the old telescope was a metal plate held down by 4 screws. Inside the hidden space was a brass key and a card bearing the number 317. It belonged to a private safe deposit company in Manhattan. The next morning, Alina and I went there. The manager confirmed that my father had listed me as the secondary holder of box 317. Inside the box were 3 things: a blue accounting ledger, a flash drive, and a sealed copy of his final will. The will gave me controlling interest in Bennett Development. But the blue ledger was even more dangerous. For 6 years, Grant had been using shell companies to overcharge Bennett Development for construction work. My mother had approved several payments. Martin Vale had created the shell companies. Together, they had taken more than $14 million. The flash drive contained scans of contracts, emails, and voice recordings. My father had discovered the scheme shortly before his cancer became severe. He was preparing to remove Grant and report Martin. But there was one final recording. My father sounded weak. If anything happens to me before I file these documents, he said, Claire must take control. Grant is reckless, but Vivian protects him. Claire is the only person who tried to protect the company without taking from it. I wanted revenge immediately. I wanted to march into the mansion, play that recording, and watch their faces collapse. Alina stopped me. They staged your humiliation in public, she said. Do not answer with anger. Answer with evidence. She was right. I hired Rebecca Sloan, a financial crimes attorney in New York. She examined everything and told me the final will appeared valid. 2 independent witnesses had signed it, and my father's doctor had confirmed he was mentally competent. But Rebecca also found something strange about the account supposedly bearing my name. It had been opened online using a copy of my driver's license. The recovery phone number belonged to Daniel. My fiancé had helped them frame me. I felt sick, but I did not call him. Rebecca asked for patience. We needed Grant to believe I was frightened and alone. So I gave him exactly what he expected. I sent a short message saying I would sign away my shares if he promised not to prosecute me. He replied in less than 1 minute. He arranged a signing ceremony at the mansion for the following Saturday. My mother invited company directors and several relatives. She wanted witnesses when I surrendered. Grant wanted one final performance. I gave him one. That Saturday, I returned to the driveway wearing the same cream dress and brown jacket I had worn when they expelled me. My mother stood near the rolls, Royce in a burgundy suit. Grant waited on the steps with Martin and Daniel. Seeing Daniel there confirmed his betrayal. My mother walked toward me. Have you finally accepted what you did? Yes, I said. I understand exactly what happened. Martin placed the transfer agreement on a table. Grant handed me a pen. Sign, he said. I set the pen down. Before I do, I want you to explain the account. So Grant glanced at Martin. There is nothing to explain. Ooh opened it. Daniel shifted behind him. I took out my phone and pressed play. Rebecca had legally recorded Grant's call to me that morning. During that call, he had warned that if I did not sign, he would move more money into the account and make sure I went to prison. His own voice filled the driveway. No one moved. Then 2 state investigators walked through the gate with Rebecca. A forensic accountant followed them. Grant's face lost all color. Martin tried to leave, but an investigator blocked him. My mother stared at me. What have you done? I protected Dad's company. Rebecca handed copies of the final will to the directors. She explained that my father had legally transferred controlling shares to me. She also told them that the Blue Ledger documented years of fraud. Grant began shouting that the evidence was fabricated. That was when I played my father's recording. His tired voice carried across the same driveway where they had called me a thief. When it ended, my mother looked suddenly old. Daniel stepped toward me. Claire, I can explain. You gave Grant my identification. He said it was only to pressure you. I never knew they would go this far. You knew enough. I removed my engagement ring and placed it on top of the unsigned agreement. You chose your price, I said. Now live with it. The investigation lasted 8 months. Grant pleaded guilty to fraud, identity theft, and falsifying financial records. Martin lost his law license and received a prison sentence. Daniel admitted his part in exchange for a reduced sentence and restitution. My mother was not sent to prison. The evidence showed she had approved suspicious payments, but had not designed the scheme. Still, the company removed her from the board, and she was ordered to repay everything she had received from Grant's shell companies. She also lost the mansion. It had been purchased through Bennett Development and never legally transferred to her. As controlling shareholder, I had the authority to sell it and recover money for employees and investors. The day before she moved out, my mother asked to see me. We stood alone in the empty living room. Pale squares marked the walls where family portraits had hung. Are you happy now? She asked. No. That answer surprised her. Then why are you doing this? Because being hurt does not make theft right. Being family does not place you above the truth. She looked toward the window. Grant was always weaker than you. I thought protecting him was my duty. You did not protect him. You taught him that someone else would always pay for his choices. Her eyes filled with tears. For one moment, I saw my mother instead of the woman who had thrown me away. But forgiveness did not mean giving her power over me again. I arranged a modest apartment for her and paid the first year of rent from my own money. I did not return the mansion. I did not restore her board seat. Mercy and surrender are not the same thing. Under my leadership, Bennett Development sold the corrupt projects, repaid investors, and created an employee profit-sharing plan. Elena joined the new ethics committee. I kept my father's blue ledger in a locked display case in my office. Not as a trophy, but as a warning. 1 year after the morning I was expelled, I returned to the old driveway. The mansion had become a residential center for women rebuilding their lives after financial abuse. Near the entrance, a young woman stood with one suitcase. She looked terrified. I recognized that look. I walked over, took one side of her suitcase, and told her she was safe. My family had tried to erase me with a lie. Instead, they showed me who I was without their name, their money, or their approval. They threw me out believing I would leave with nothing. But I walked away with the truth. And when I returned, the truth owned the house.